Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Dr. Sharma Show. I'm your host, Dr. Sharma. I am a functional nephrologist and metabolic health expert, and I bring you new topics on health and fitness every week. Today, we have a very special discussion about how to fight against cancer naturally and get the remission naturally. So our guest today is Katrina Foe, and she has fought with her own breast cancer. She became a functional practitioner after getting her own breast cancer into remission 100% naturally. And she's a board certified in holistic nutrition and has been in the health field since the age of 24 when she started her first Pilates studio. She also homeschooled her 7 children while writing her international bestseller, Nutritional Pilates. So today is a very important topic. If you're looking to dive deep into this topic, please join me here. And again, the chat is active. And I'll be able to answer those questions with Katrina, who will be here shortly.
Totally.
All right. Thank you so much for joining me here, Katrina. I'm very excited about today's topic. We know how important it is to deep dive into, the natural process of cancer, and you have a personal story to share with our audience today. So let's start with that and tell us more about your journey, how you ended up with functional medicine and taking care of the cancer patients.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was 37 years old nursing my baby and had a plugged duct that when it got resolved, it was still a golf ball sized lump, and I didn't think much of it. I was young, I was healthy, I was doing all the stuff. And when I dove into it per my mom's request, it turned out it was cancer, which I didn't see coming. And the whole journey was a little crazy. I had already had some food as medicine, like profound transformative experiences. So I knew I wanted for me to do it naturally, but I wish it would say that it was a linear journey. I went down to Mexico and got kicked out of a clinic there because I asked too many questions. I got pregnant and eventually found functional medicine through the process, which was so eye-opening and made so much sense immediately. And I had never done anything, any testing, anything like that. But it really resonated to get to the root cause and then work functionally.
Wonderful. So I understand you are in complete remission since then. So how many years have it been?
It's been just about 10 years. And the whole process was so crazy. I couldn't not learn more about what had just happened. And that's where I dove in to become a practitioner. First off, just for my own family to understand so it wouldn't happen to my kids. But I just couldn't keep quiet about all the amazing things that we have to address this crazy disease.
I've seen that like the people have some kind of, personal trauma, or they have gone through with similar situation with their loved ones, which actually gets them to that turning point where they want to do something about it. So there is something powerful about it, and I can relate to you because my journey also started with my family members getting sick on dialysis, and I ended up losing them. And that made me look beyond the conventional medicine. And we know that, I have seen in my medical training that we deal with cancer with heavy chemotherapy drugs. And these drugs are actually poison, not only for cancer cells, but also our natural cells. And people, they get a lot of side effects, and, it's a remedy for certain kind of cancers, I agree. But in most of the cases, I have seen people suffering from it more than getting cured. So, So I think looking at, beyond the conventional medicine and seeing what else can help these patients is really something we all want to know more about it. And your personal journey, it just makes it even more powerful. So thank you for sharing that, and
Sure.
congratulations on being in remission. Um, so, when you said that you were nursing your child and you had that blood duct, which led to those symptoms, what are the mainly symptoms somebody is coming with we should be aware of, or people in general should be aware of when they're dealing with breast cancer?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is where I really want to shout this from the rooftops that there aren't symptoms. The vast majority of my clients are young, they're middle aged, and they're coming to me in shock because they have no symptoms. And this was me. I mean, I was postpartum, I had a little extra weight, I was a little tired, but I mean, nothing that would even have prompted me to go to a doctor. And, looking back, once I did the labs, I could see what was showing up, but there were no symptoms. And I hear this all the time. And it's the things that you don't have symptoms for that are there that you can test for that really can drive cancer, which is a big deal.
Yeah, many people, they are actually just living their day-to-day life without any symptoms. And it's usually late in the game when they find that they have like a lump, or, they the modern science, it promotes the self-exam in women. So if we find a lump in your armpit, which is the lymph nodes which are swollen because of the cancer in your breast, and that is something, first sign which comes to mind or has been seen in our regular practice. But per se, there are really no other symptoms you would be aware of if you have breast cancer. What other type of cancers patients have you seen or have you helped?
Yeah, it's all over the board. Anywhere from like colon cancer, to thyroid cancer, liver cancer, brain cancer, lung cancer, blood cancers. And again, the same thing. I mean, most of the symptoms that we think of as like cancer are really more the side effects of, chemo and things. It's not actually the cancer itself that's kicking up these symptoms when people are having issues. I mean, my clients are coming to me, they're not eating McDonald's. They're already switching away from, toxic toiletries and stuff. They're already doing the stuff. There's things behind it that they're not aware of, that are there. And I like to say my clients, they tend to be the go, 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 stuck in sympathetic type personality, high achievers, and I think they're just good compensators. But I don't see this plethora of symptoms usually when they come to me.
So, how do you start your workup on these patients? What are the most common lab testing you do? How do you how do you start evaluating these patients?
Oh, that's a great question. And, especially since symptoms are usually driving the determination of which test to run, this can get extremely complicated. So, my approach is a little different than most. I look at this and I don't want to miss anything, because we know with cancer that it's multifactorial. There's lots of things contributing to it. So I want to get, all the smoking guns, so to speak, on the table up front, so then we can prioritize and be very strategic with how we address whatever is showing up. So I run everything that is known to drive, be associated, or cause cancer, right up front, so that we can see what we're dealing with. And yeah, it's a lot of testing, but that way we're not missing anything. Because I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have clients that are like, I've been doing GI work for years and I have cancer. How did this happen? Okay, well, yeah, but you didn't look at XYZ, and those were issues that were missed. So it's important to look at the full spectrum and make sure there's nothing missed.
Right. And, the Cologuard nowadays, it is not 100% sensitive, right? So there are some cases which might be missed on Cologuard. Similarly, colonoscopy, if you go through more interventional approach to detect the cancer, it is also not 100%. So you might miss those polyps who are, because of the poor prep, or maybe just a physician missing them during colonoscopy. So nothing is 100%, but
Right.
doing the testing, having multiple approaches together will have better chances of detecting the cancer rather than just focusing on one approach. That's all I wanted to say.
Oh
Um,
yeah, there's two things here. So what I'm testing when clients get to me, usually they already have a diagnosis. They've already been to an oncologist. And so the tests I'm running are for determining why they got cancer, which is different than if they have cancer. So I like to say that it's important to know what question you want answered before you determine which test needs to be run. So if people don't have a diagnosis, yeah, they're like you're saying, all the tests out there are kind of have their pros and cons. It depends on what you're looking for. For me, I just find it mind blowing. There are tests, DATAR is one of them, that you can diagnose cancer from a blood biopsy. Now, for those of you that aren't familiar, this is a simple draw of blood from your arm, just like you would get at your doctor's office, and they can see the circulating tumor cell count and as well as where it's coming from, which this is huge because especially in light of breast health, like mammograms are known to cause cancer. The pressure has been known to rupture cancers and spread it. Biopsies where they extract the cancer cells leave what's called track marks where they can potentially drop cancer cells and create secondary tumors along those lines. So there's a mass of issues with these tests that are not being talked about. And so it's nice to know that our technology is starting to catch up. I just, hope they get more widespread used by, and covered by insurance companies.
Yeah, that is the big thing now. In the last 2 years, I have seen the epigenetics, the genetic testing has really boomed up. And many of the insurance companies, they are not covering these genetic testing anymore. In my precision medicine practice also, we use genetic testing all the time for metabolic disorders. And most of them are linked with the chronic diseases. And I think there is a role to talk more about the metabolic function here when we are talking about cancer. So what do you think is the connection between the metabolic dysregulation and cancer?
Yeah, well, this is something that's been established since 1931 when Otto Warburg won the Nobel Prize for showing that there's a metabolic shift, deep in the mitochondria, which is the energy producing part of the cells, where, a cancer cell is different than a regular cell. And a cancer cell is switched to being anaerobic instead of aerobic. And this causes a huge disruption in how it creates energy and a huge need of glucose. It's very inefficient, if you will, and creates this acid cloud around the cell. And it's very different. And so at the heart of cancer, it's a metabolic at the cell level issue. So we've got, quite a bit of implications there, but this goes back a long way. This is not new knowledge, like you're saying.
Right. And I know Dr. Thomas Seyfried is one of the names which comes in my mind when it comes to this research, which he did. He was a biochemist and he looked at, if we deprive these cancer cells from glucose and then expose them to oxidative stress, it can actually help, especially the brain tumor. The glioblastoma is the research he did, that by doing this, it will have a significant effect on the brain cancers. So it's very intriguing. I want to learn more about his theories and his work in the medicine, and I'm glad that we are looking deeper into this metabolic dysfunction, to see how it is affecting the cancer. And we know that the obesity is linked with 13 different cancers. So there is a link between obesity, metabolic dysfunction, and the cancer. So if you think that metabolic dysfunction is related to the cancer, what would you suggest to your patients to regulate their metabolism better and to prevent the cancer to grow?
Oh, it's a great question. So yeah, I mean, cancer is 100% a metabolic disease. It's well established in the literature. With all clients, I'm going to seek to make sure that there's kind of a two-pronged approach. We're going to get the blood sugar of the client regulated when they have a lower blood sugar consistently all the time. There's not the big spikes and dips and craziness that most people are having. That's going to reduce the fuel source being given to the cancer cell. And so just off the top, it doesn't have the building blocks, the energy that it needs to grow. Mm-hmm. The second issue is that if you can get it down to a normal place and then get, by reducing carbohydrates intake, at the Krebs cycle level, you're going to start producing ketones. And this is what Thomas Siegfried was doing, is he's getting them into a ketogenic state and then giving chemo and such and pulsing it to show how much more effective the drugs are when you're in this state. And what they've also shown is that ketones have therapeutic effects on their own of reducing tumor size, shrinking tumors, and slowing their growth, as well as other pathways for cancer. So not just getting no sugar, no white sugar, so to speak, like most people come to me are doing, but getting it so that it's balanced. Because one of the biggest problems I see is that, kind of like we were talking about earlier, there's not really symptoms much for high blood sugar. When we talk about blood sugar issues, it's the low blood sugar that you hear, that shaky, hangry, lightheaded kind of stuff. That's not what I'm talking about. When you have high blood sugar, and this was me, so I'm the first to confess, I felt great. I had tons of fuel source running around in my blood. And not only was that giving me energy, but it was also giving energy for the cancer to grow. So we want to kind of look at it in both prongs to make sure that that person gets dialed in. And then you can see things shifting on their labs with their hemoglobin A1C and their IGF-1 and such like that.
Wonderful. Yeah. And what do you think are the other reasons for the cancer to develop? For example, infections. Would they play any role in cancer formation?
Yes, absolutely. So there's lots of different types of infections out there, and they play a huge role. And the beautiful thing is that we have the amazing testing capabilities, and we're only going to get more to see deeper, to actually test and see these things. So whether we're talking about things like H. pylori, blastocystis hominis, candida, different things in the gut, or if we're talking about things that are more systemic, like Epstein-Barr, viruses and things that are going to affect the immune system, they're all going to put a pressure on the body, a burden, if you will, that the body's just not functioning well. And the immune system gets distracted, and this is where it's going to take 7 or 8 of these big things to really overshadow the immune system so that it can't do what it's supposed to and what it's designed to do.
Right. I think that's why we have now vaccines for the HPV starting from, the teenage. I I think the modern science is going into that direction, preventing the actions which can lead to the cancer, but there is still a lot to know about and to do the research about. So,
Yeah, I don't know that I would agree that the vaccines are going to be the way to prevent it. I would say making sure that the terrain of the person overall is healthy is going to be a much more efficient way to make sure that they don't get cancer, instead of, stimulating the immune system in ways that are maybe a little artificial.
yeah. I'm not against it. I'm not in favor, but I think there is more research we need into this
Hmm.
field to find out more about how it's gonna impact in a long
Yeah,
term to these patients. Now, if
absolutely.
you are looking at the remission of the cancer, what are the things people can start adopting in their lifestyle to prevent, number one, to prevent, and number two, if they have cancer, to go into remission?
Yeah. So, it's if somebody's already in remission or doesn't have cancer, there's some real key areas that they can look at, including things like, the metabolism, making sure that the carbohydrate load isn't too high, checking your blood sugar and actually seeing where it is, making sure you're hydrated. Most people don't know that things like fruit juice and herbal teas can actually dehydrate you. Making sure that you're not eating those toxic oils like the canola seed oil and such like that, that are super inflammatory. And then generally making sure you get the toxins out of your life. Now, a lot of this stuff can be dialed in way more precisely with testing. So, for example, it can be a full-time job and cost a small fortune to get every chemical out of your life. I would argue it's not even possible in today's
Right.
society. So when you're doing testing to see, oh, XYZ are the chemicals that I have overloads of, let's see where those are coming from and focus on those. I can do a lot less work and get a lot more bang for my buck. So again, it depends on how motivated the person is to do that work. And I'd love to say everyone's motivated to do it beforehand, but I know honestly they aren't. And that's where, when somebody does have a cancer diagnosis, it's, yes, it's good and fine to do the standard of care. There's a time and a place for it. I'm not against it, but it's not looking at the why. So let me just give you an example. If somebody has toxic levels of mold, which is extremely, extremely common, and I'm with cancer and was part of my journey, it's known in the real estate industry that you can't sell a house that has mold, known mold. So, if somebody is living in a moldy house, can't sell their house, they go and they do their chemo, radiation, whatever, they come back, that mold is known to be a carcinogen, but nobody's testing to see if they have a moldy house. So then this, like, the $1 million Russian roulette question of, like, is it going to come back, kind of makes sense, because you can see, oh, I still have all the factors and environment that brewed that cancer to begin with. So it makes sense that it would come back. And this is where finding out your why, you can start to adjust the factors in your life, diet, lifestyle, environmental toxins, all of that, to make sure that you're living the best life you can and giving yourself the best chance to stay in remission.
That's very powerful. We know that environment, our lifestyle is strongly related with our metabolic health, and that can also impact the cancer. So, what is the nutritional role you think is playing in the remission and prevention of the cancer? What kind of nutrition do you follow or give the protocol in your patient care?
Yeah, so it depends on where they're at in their cancer journey, but I strongly recommend a strict ketogenic diet, and we go and take the clients very strategically, so it's gentle, not painful, into a nutritional ketosis, and then we work with things like exogenous ketones and fasting to get into higher levels of therapeutic ketones. Now, depending on what their genetics show, and let me just be super clear, these are not the genetics that an oncologist is running. These are the low penetrance genes that show things that are actionable. So if you've got, a predisposition genetically towards issues with blood sugar, like this may be something you need to stay on long term. Versus somebody that maybe doesn't have that and there was a situational issue, maybe they can do a little more cycling in and out. But overall, a lower carb diet, what we're eating as Americans nowadays is not natural. And I'm talking 200 years, not 2,000 years ago. 200 years ago, we did not eat this many carbohydrates. And we have greatly shifted to way more processed, way more carb loads. And that's where you can see the exact correlation with all these metabolic diseases, such as, not only diabetes, but cancer, heart disease, dementia. Dementia is being called type 3 diabetes now. And, you're seeing a huge, brunt of it with your kidney clients. It's such an epidemic thing that people are not connecting the carbs and the load overall with everything.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. That's why we call it as SAD diet, right? Standard American diet.
Right.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the insight. I'm sure our audience have found a lot of value on our discussion. And how can they reach you?
Yeah, my website is cancerfreedom.com. And Instagram is just my name at Katrina Foe.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Katrina, for chatting with me. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you have a wonderful night.
Oh, thank you. You too. It was great.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.